All right, let's talk about the story of Milo in the Bull, or Milo of Croton. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would talk to you guys and gals a little bit about this today. But a quick reminder, if you would please click like on my video, it would be greatly appreciated. If you aren't following or subscribed, please do so, and please leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much. Yes, this is a video I make several times a year. People always appreciate it, though, because it delves into one of the single most important pieces of history and lore regarding strength training and weightlifting. And that's the story of Milo of Croton, which was, again, in ancient Greece. This was over 2,000 years ago. But it was documented by the scholars and philosophers of the time, and this is considered to be the historical basis of the idea of progressive overload. So essentially, what we had at the time was considered to be the strongest man in the world, at least to the known world to the Greeks. And he was a famous wrestler and was considered to be the strongest man, at least in ancient Greece at the time. Again, noted for his feats of strength. And Milo postulated one day that if he got a bull calf, like a little baby bull calf, as a pet, and he picked it up and carried it every single day, right? And he carried it every day, that as the bull grew, that he believed that his strength, this was a theory he had, that he believed that he would get stronger to match the slow growth of this bull. Because, it would be, a fairly small, very, very insignificant amount of weight every week, but it would add up over a couple of years. And so that's what he did. So Milo then, being somewhat of a showman and a wrestler and a famous sportsman, picked up this bull calf. He got him a little new bull calf, and he used to pick it up and carry it on his shoulders. Just like think of a yoke walk for a strong man, or where you'd place a squat bar up on your shoulders. And he would get down under that bull calf and squat it up and walk around with it. And he used to, as the story goes, used to walk around through the town with this bull calf. And of course, obviously, over the weeks and months, it got bigger. Right, because he would do this every single day, and he'd go walk around through the town with it, almost kind of like a little ruck walk, some conditioning work. Now, we don't know how far or how long he walked with it. None of this is documented, but it was known by the locals that he walked every day, and it created quite a scene. Now, because Milo was already this famous wrestler, a lot of people came to observe this because of the spectacle. So before long, leaders, politicians, other philosophers, athletes, other people started showing up. They would go to Croton just to observe the spectacle, because again, it was a bit of a spectacle, a circus act. All right, it was a circus act in a sense, because there's this spectacle. This famous wrestler has done all this other stuff, and now he's doing this crazy thing, carrying around this bull calf. Well, it grew and it grew and it grew, and before long, guess what happened? It became a fully grown bull. But because he had built his strength up gradually, Milo was capable of taking this bull and getting under it and squatting it, picking it up off the ground, and walking with it apparently for some distance. We don't know how far, but he did get up and walk with it. And it was documented by the historians. This was noted because it went into writings. Because, keeping in mind, government officials observed it and documented it. The philosophers of the time, who were oftentimes learned men and the equivalent of their scientists and mathematicians, they all observed this, and it was noted. And accordingly, this story was so famous because, again, it was kind of ridiculous at a certain point. He's picking up this bull. Again, totally ludicrous. Particularly at the time, so think of the spectacles of the world's strongest men's feats we see today, right? This would have been the equivalent. This would have been the equivalent of people going, wow, this has never been done. No one has ever done this before. This is an insane feat of strength. And so it got documented. And because people wanted to know the story, the whole backstory got documented. And the philosophers and even the coaches and trainers of various of athletes for even the old Olympic Games back then, they wanted to know what in the heck he did. And so the story got told and documented of how he came up with this theory, and he picked it up and carried it every day until it grew. And it grew. And accordingly, this became the entire basis of our modern concept of progressive overload. So much so that if you guys remember the big weightlifting magazine for, over 50, 60 years, it was called Milo. And it was about weightlifting and Olympic lifting, and they named it after Milo. There's been art depicting it and all sorts of stuff because it was such a big deal. But that was the idea. The idea then became that if we take any given amount of weight, and it can be in any form, we're talking maxes, reps, right? Because I'm doing a bunch of high reps in this video. Rep work, that if you gradually increase it over time at the rate that your body can adapt to it, that you will get stronger. And we also know that you will get bigger and gain muscle. Because keeping in mind, this Milo situation, he wasn't maxing lifting the bull. He was walking around with it. He was walking around with a progressively heavier load on his shoulders for a couple years. Like technically the bull would have gained a little bit of weight every single day. Every day it would have gained weight. So he was doing distance and volume. So if you think of it in terms of muscle gain, he would have gained a lot of muscle. Like he was probably a very, very jacked guy, at least in comparison to other people of the era. So he probably was the strongest and biggest, most muscular man most of them would have seen at the time. And again, that's what we would see from it. So this whole thing has carried over into our modern era. So that's why this story is important, right? Its story was important because it's antiquity that led to our modern ideas that spawned whole areas of exercise science and coaching and everything else. It's gotten so much more advanced. And when people do question, I've had a few people question, I've had people argue, and I'm like, y'all missed it, definitely didn't research it. Yes, the bulls of that time, of that era where he was, were not as big as we're thinking of as modern bulls. Like the bull would have been, I've seen data suggesting maybe 400 up to about maybe 450 pounds. It's been the numbers that I've seen thrown around by archaeologists or historians who looked at the data from the era, anthropology and things. So probably around a 450 pound bull. But if you think about that, he still had to build up to that gradually because it's not like they had barbells the way that we do today. So that's still quite a feat to get under an animal who is over 400 pounds and to pick it up on your shoulders and to walk around with it is still a pretty reasonable feat by even today's modern standards, right? Because again, you're talking about a big moving animal. So again, it's really fascinating though when you step back and look at it. It is one of the most important stories regarding our lore as lifters, right? All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and guys next time.